Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for another exciting educational speaker series event from the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. My name is Noah Maciejewski. I'm a board member for the BBA, as well as the chair of the Education Committee. Before we get started with tonight's guest speaker, I just have a few announcements to share on behalf of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. First off, we would love for all of you watching tonight to become members of our organization. To do so, it is extremely easy. We ask that you please head to our website, buffalobroadcasters.com. Some things that you should be excited about with our membership coming up in the near future. We have our Hall of Fame ballot will be coming out in the next few weeks, where only members are able to vote for the new inductees into our Hall of Fame. So if you're looking to vote for this year's Hall of Fame ballot, we ask that you please sign up and become a member of our organization as soon as you can, so you don't miss out on your opportunity to do that. Also, on behalf of the rest of the Education Committee, I want to let you know about another educational initiative of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association, and that is our television show, Broadcasting Buffalo, which airs Saturdays at 6:30 on MyTV, WNYO. This is a show we create in partnership with the students at Buffalo State College. So we certainly hope you'll be able to tune in Saturdays at 6:30 for that. And without further ado, I want to jump into tonight's event. Again, another great educational speaker series from the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. Tonight's guest is a senior correspondent for Yahoo Entertainment. He's also previously covered Hollywood for MTV, AOL Moviefone, URB and Premiere Magazine. And if that wasn't enough to impress you, you can also add writer, director, producer, and DJ to his long list of accomplishments. Of course, here at the Buffalo Broadcasters Association, we always like to make a local connection with our speakers. So very important for me to note that he is also a Kenmore native. I'd like for you to please join me in welcoming Kevin Polowy. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, Noah, thanks for having me. I got to correct you right off the bat because I'm proud of where I'm from in Western New York, North Buffalo. I'm a North
Buffalo. I'm
North Buffalo native. No disrespect to Kenmore. It's a beautiful suburb. It's right on top of us. It's right north of us. It's beautiful. I go to Mighty Taco there when I go home.
Absolutely.
But, I'm a proud North Buffalo. I'm a city guy. I'm a proud native of North Buffalo.
I'm going to knock Steve Reska's email for that gap in information, but thanks for letting us know. And that's kind of how I want to start tonight. I want to get to let our viewers know a little bit more about you. So just run us through your background here, ties to this area, and how you ended up in the business doing all the things that you've done.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, great to be here and speak to everyone today. Great to talk to you, Noah. Always nice to connect with hometown roots and folks from Buffalo. And from I can tell from the consonants in your name, probably a fellow Polish. A man from Buffalo. But yeah, like I said, I grew up in North Buffalo. Off Hurdle Ave, between two houses because my parents were divorced. Off Hurdle Ave, and also by the zoo near Parkside. I went to City Honors High School. I started. Yeah, I think I knew I wanted to get into journalism from a very young age. I was lucky because I know a lot of people don't really figure that out until much later on. But I kind of knew. I fell in love with movies really early into my life, and I think a huge part of it, I think, had to do with growing up in North Buffalo, because I grew up like a couple blocks from the North Park Theater. So I would go to see. I had Buffalo's best movie theater basically in my backyard, and I would walk over and see Then I think they've changed up the programming a little bit now, but then it was really all art house stuff. So I fell in love with the cinema. I was going to see movies like Cinema Paradiso and Europa and The Crying Game when I was like 11 or 12, and I think it really sort of shaped my tastes in entertainment and my love for movies. So I think I decided pretty early on that I initially wanted to be a movie critic, and I also wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be in movies, which is interesting because now sort of what I do for a living is really sort of a hybrid of those two career paths, because I'm not necessarily a movie critic. I mostly host and do interviews with celebrities. But as you guys know, as broadcasters, you're always acting when you're on camera a little bit. You're always playing a role, especially as an entertainment host. So yeah, I was junior movie critic for USA Today when I was 12 years old. I was just a movie nerd. I was such a nerd. I saw everything that came out. I was obsessed, and so of course I wrote a really impressive letter. I don't, you know, speaking of Buffalo connections, I don't think it hurt at the time that the film editor, one of the critics at the time, who's remained a mentor and a dear friend of mine, Susan Wazina from USA Today, was a native of Buffalo. But I was one of 10 kids chosen to be the first round of USA Today junior movie critics when I was only 12. And they would, you know, send me a check for $25, and I would go watch. I think it was like the summer of '92. I watched Batman Returns, a couple other movies. I would get on the phone with Susan. I would tell her what I thought of the movie. She would type it up. It would have run in USA Today a couple of days later. And I think just that experience it hooked me. You know, seeing my name in photo and print, and getting paid a whopping $25 to tell someone to tell the country, as many people as read USA Today in 1992, like what you thought of a movie, what I thought of a movie. I got hooked from then. You know, I wrote for I went to City Honors for middle school and high school. I wrote for our school paper. It was called Dimensions. I think all 4 years in high school. I started an underground newspaper at one point too, for stuff that we couldn't publish in Dimensions. I wrote for the Buffalo News section, teen section called Next. I'm not sure if that's still a thing, but yeah, I think I had the luxury really of knowing sort of what I wanted to do from a young age. So I pursued that. I went to journalism school at Arizona State, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. I wrote for the school paper there for most of my time there. I started covering movie junkets when I was a junior in college. They started because Arizona State was such a huge school. They would they'd send us. They would actually fly us to New York, to Los Angeles for these press junkets, and we'd sit on these round tables. Of course, with like 10, 12 other journalists, and most of them were working journalists. So of course, half the time I didn't even get a question because I was intimidated as hell just to be there, but just kind of happy to be there. But you know, again, once I got a taste for that, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. So I sort of stuck with that. I entered journalism into most of what I do now is on camera, but I entered through good old fashioned print journalism. You know, I was mostly a writer to begin with. From Arizona, I made my way to New York City. I got an internship with Premiere Magazine, which was one of my favorite, as a movie nerd, one of my favorite magazines growing up. One of those things like Entertainment Weekly, I read cover to cover every issue. I scored an internship with them, and then sort of, was kind of a starving artist for a good 9-12 months in New York City there until I got my first job. It was shortly after 9/11, so it wasn't a great job market at the time. But I was hired by Moviefone.com, famous, of course, for the Seinfeld episode, and for being a premier destination to buy movie tickets for a long time on the web. And that was my first 9 to 5. And yeah, for that was bought by AOL. From Moviefone. I was at Moviefone for years. I went over to MTV. Ultimately made my way out to California to be a correspondent for Yahoo, and that's where I am today. I just talked for a really long time. Noah, were you expecting that long of an answer? I don't know. I'm sorry if I just rambled on.
No, the great thing about hearing your story is the many directions that it's taken you in. So that's really awesome to hear you going from watching movies as a kid at the North Park Theater all the way out to Los Angeles and your current role with Yahoo Entertainment. So that's really great. And I just wanted to start out with a question. Actually, BBA President Katie Morse and I were discussing this just before we went live tonight. So it sounds like you knew right away that you wanted to be an entertainment reporter. So for any students who might be watching tonight who are thinking about doing entertainment reporting versus, traditional, journalism in the sense of like on the street, MMJ type, reporting on crimes and politics and things like that. What's your advice for anyone who's specifically looking to laser focus in on entertainment?
My advice is to write about it, vlog about it. If you're trying to do it on camera, wherever you can and as much as often as you can. I mean, I think like you're not going to get hired by Entertainment Weekly or Access Hollywood, right out of the gates. Like, you're really going to have to sort of put in the time and find those clips. And unfortunately, probably do a lot of things unpaid for a little while. And I don't mean unpaid internships. My internship was definitely unpaid at the time, and it was a real struggle to live in New York City on an unpaid internship. But find any outlet you can, even if they pay peanuts, even if they pay you, what USA Today was paying me in 1992, which was $25, which was actually probably good in 1992. But just to get clips, write, record yourself, get as many clips as you can, because you're never, there's not, I don't think there's really a traditional path into this career. I mean, yeah, we can all, no one really goes to entertainment journalism school. Of course, we can go to broadcast journalism school. We can go to print journalism school. I mean, I minored in film. So that was sort of how I got a higher education in that regard, to like really start to work this sort of muscles in terms of like critical analysis of film. But yeah, my advice is just if you're into movies, start writing movie reviews and post them on your own blog, or find sites. I mean, I know for a fact there are a couple of movie sites that I think have great national recognition that are based in Buffalo. I think one is called the Film Stage. I think there might be a couple others. Get clips wherever you can, even if it's only on your own blog, on your own YouTube channel, because you have to got to work those muscles. You have to perfect the craft. I mean, there's no really perfecting the craft, but you have to, every single thing you write is going to be a little bit, even if it's 0.0001% better than the last thing. So yeah, just work those muscles as much as you can. Get those clips, even if at first it feels like no one's watching, and don't get discouraged. Record yourself doing movie reviews. And don't get discouraged by the fact that, maybe the first one has 10 viewers, because maybe the second one has 20, and find a way to be creative on those outlets. And the more creative and the smarter you are with sort of content you're putting out there, eventually you're going to continue to progress. But, I've been doing this for, like I said, professionally for almost 20 years. But like I said at the top of the show, I had the luxury of knowing that I wanted to do it a lot earlier. So it's been a very sort of steady climb for me over the years.
So in addition to the consistency that you've just mentioned of continuing to post, no matter if anyone's watching or not, I really like that you mentioned utilizing different outlets such as YouTube and different social media platforms, things like that. Vlogging, I think you mentioned in there as well. So I wanted to ask that for you, as someone who, especially coming from an original print background and the evolution of technology over, the last decade or so, how much has that impacted your job and your day to day, with social media and things like that, and what you're doing at work?
I'm sorry, how much is my job impacted by social media? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and just what's the ways that you've seen, just because it's become so accessible now for anyone to get, before you used to only see people on video if they were coming from the television set in your living room, but now, everyone has one of these, and everyone can just pick it up and get their word out, and their opinions, their criticisms of films or whatever it may be. So how has that impacted the way that you do your job?
I have a love-hate relationship with social media, because I do have to use it. I rely on it. I need it. It's sort of required of us in these positions to amplify our work, not only to draw traffic back to our employers, but to sort of also amplify our own profiles, right? As what we do. So, I'll clip my own interviews. I'll put them out there. And for the most part, there's a lot of positive reception, but there's a lot of trolls out there. I've had issues. I've had security issues for things that have run on Yahoo or on social media, where people took issue. And I'm I'm not even in politics. Maybe some of them did have to do with sort of social justice or race. But I've definitely. It's a tricky sandbox to play in social media, because it really can be used to your advantage. But there's also, there's a skeevy side, and I think there's a really unhealthy way people can use it to sort of go viral for the wrong reasons. A lot of times the louder and angrier people are, the more likes they get. There's this sort of, the outrage machines. There are a lot of things that are fully deserving of outrage out there. Don't get me wrong, but my attitude towards social media is to bring more positivity into the fold, because there's a lot of toxicity and there's a lot of hostility out of there. To be honest, I almost see it I enjoy it, but I also see it as sometimes a necessary evil that comes with sort of the job that we do.
Sure. And sticking with the trend of like new technology and things like that, I wanted to ask you about the way that maybe streaming services for movies and television has impacted your career. From the sounds of it, your career was started by having to go to the North Park Theater and watch movies. And, the big screen was really the only way that you could get access to these movies at the beginning of your career. Mm-hmm. And with so many different, plus this, plus that, this network, plus this, and all these different streaming services. There's so much content out there right now. So how does that affect your job with the absolute surplus amount of content that is out there for you to, create commentary around? And with all of that out there, how do you make time to consume it all? And how do you prevent a burnout, of just never ending consuming content?
Yeah, wise choice of words, because it's exhausting. There is so much content, which is a good thing when you work in entertainment or journalism. Everyone's eating, which is great in the entertainment field. And as you mentioned, I write and I direct and produce and act, and I do all that. Every basically LA cliche in the book on the side. Ultimately, I think it's a great thing. I think there's a really sort of whole other conversation we get into about sort of how that impacts movie theaters and the type of movies that can survive movie theaters right now, which are, it's well proven. The big IPs right now are all really are the only things. And there's a lot of people that are scared that the type of movies that I would go see at North Park, the art house movies, basically every movie that's probably nominated for an Oscar this year, are no longer going to have a place in the movie theater. And that's sad. But I think at some point, I think the industry is clearly in a transitional phase right now. And I think at some point it will level out, and there will be. We might see this is already, I think they already have a theater in New York City. I mean, we're probably going to get to a point where Netflix and Amazon have their own movie theaters, and they're basically they operate as sort of part of the studio system with your Disney and your Warner Brothers. And it's in each one of these sort of, corporate entertainment behemoths is going to have to sort of have a sort of a two-pronged business approach where, maybe the brunt of their content is running on streaming, but there is, I do believe there's always going to be a need, a desire for people to go to the movies, to buy popcorn, to have that experience, to see stuff on the big screen, and not just like Batman and Spider-Man, but Nomadland and those movies that too, can be really breathtaking to behold on the big screen. But yeah, in terms of, the gluttony of content right now, it's tough. I definitely reject a lot of publicist pitches because there's too much to cover for us. And, we're a huge company, but we're a small entertainment team. So I would love to, see more than I do, especially when it comes to the series, because I feel like we have sort of, TV is so good right now, and there's so much that just passes us by because we don't have that time to consume it. And my focus is still primarily on the movie side. I used to be, 100% movies. I used to not thumb my nose at TV, but for a long time, maybe until, I don't know, the last 5 or 10 years, I think shows like The Sopranos and The Wire really started to change things. But film was always sort of the dominant medium in terms of quality. And now it doesn't feel that way anymore. It feels like the best stuff is in series form. And it's tough to keep, even I, who I do this thing for a living, because I'm required to watch so many movies for interviews. I don't get to watch as much as I would like. If I'm not watching something for work and it's a TV show, it's like I'm if my wife starts to watch something without me, I'm like I'm screwed, because I'm never gonna have a chance to just sit down by myself and watch something just like for pure leisure. You know,
It's funny you bring that up.
It's exhausting to be honest, but ultimately I think it's a good problem to have for all of us.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned watching, series with your wife or anything like that, and that brings us to our first question of the night from a viewer. This is actually one of our board members as well. Taylor Epps would like to know, what do you watch for your own enjoyment versus what do you watch for work?
Hey Taylor, that's a great question. I watch pretty much every movie that comes out, so I never really have to think about like, oh, I need to catch up on that movie, because I'm almost covering everything that you need to see, whether it's going to be a big box office hit or going to be a big Oscar awardsy movie, or going to festivals or whatnot. So I would say that mostly sort of falls in line with TV is sort of my pleasure viewing. My strategy, just because like we were just talking about, it gets so overwhelming to try to keep up with everything. I try to have one drama and one comedy that we're watching at a time. This is how behind I can even get. It wasn't very long we finished like Schitt's Creek, and I think that wrapped up like 2 years ago. But right now I think our comedy is The After Party on Apple, which is excellent. And I think our drama, between dramas, I'm watching Severance also on Apple, which I started to watch for work. I watched the first couple episodes. We're in Ozark is another one. We're sort of probably in like season 2. Sometimes it's embarrassing to admit how far behind I am on TV shows, considering this is my job. But like I said, there's just there aren't enough hours in the day to keep up with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how that could be a problem, but I'm right there with you. I feel like I'm always behind, and it's when the season finales or the series finales of a show are coming out is when I start with the premiere, when it's wrapping up. So I'm right there with you as far as falling behind on shows and things like that.
Succession is the best show on television. I will say that.
Which show?
Succession on HBO. I think that's the best show on TV right now.
We'll have to make sure that our viewers check that out. I want to transition really quick and pivot and send some congratulations your way on your National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Award that you recently received from the Los Angeles Press Club. Congratulations. And I guess also congratulations to your daughters. And for the viewers who might not know why I'm also congratulating your daughters, can you tell us a little bit more about Kid Gloves?
Yeah, it's a family affair. About I'm going to say mid 2021, we launched a series called Kid Gloves, where my daughters will interview celebrities for me. I will be in on the call, and we do a little bit of banter among us. But the genesis of it was basically, we get the opportunity to interview so many actors who are promoting family movies, who are promoting kid movies. And a lot of major stars will do these movies, and we would sort of have a tough time sort of trying to figure out how to cover them, in sort of new and exciting, creative ways. And there's only so many ways you can ask Reese Witherspoon about voicing a singing pig, as she does in the Sing movies. So I kind of experimented with this format before, where I think it was like one of the Despicable Me movies, where I had the kids in I have two young daughters. I have the kids in my daughter's class tape questions for Steve Carell and Kristen Wiig, and they were super cute, but they were young kids because this was preschool, and so they were all like, who's your favorite princess? And they were cute, and it was fun to go sort of in the room and do those with them. And it was like, it was like, so, it was kind of one of those things like, oh, that's really cute. But I was like, I think there's something sort of more robust that we could do with this concept. And so I came up with the idea for Kid Gloves, which is basically, it's more sort of a comedy bit where, the girls sort of, in the earlier episodes, we launched it. The pilot episode was with Jake Gyllenhaal. In the earlier episodes, they would sort of like work their way up with a couple of cute questions in between, where they're like, like, what's your favorite color? Classic kid question, right? Like, what do you like better, mermaids or unicorns? And then boom, what are NFTs? Or like just catch them off guard with something. and sort of also find, so, you know, because they are promoting movies, we'll find sort of thematic ways. You know, I think he was promoting a movie called Spirit Untamed, where he played like a horse wrangler. So they were asking him like, oh, what's the worst you've ever hurt yourself? And we had this whole running bit where they kept asking him to send them pictures. So we kind of turned it into, I have a background in comedy. You know, I did a lot of improv, especially when I lived in New York, and I've done some comedy acting. So I'm sort of their ghost writer. We'll come up with questions together. It's very collaborative. It's fun. It's a really great bonding experience. But yeah, we did that pilot episode with Jake Gyllenhaal, and it just immediately caught on. We've done episodes since with James Corden, Ludacris, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Selena Gomez, Vanessa Hudgens. Just today, we launched our latest episode with Ryan Reynolds, which is one of my favorite ones. Yeah, he's also a girl dad, so I knew and hilarious. So I knew he would be perfect for it. But yeah, we won our episode with where James Corden, as you mentioned, just won a National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Award, which is amazing to sort of like share that with my daughters. It's really, really cool. They are just making me look really good right now. We're gonna go on we're gonna do our first red carpet in I think a month for Universal Pictures, actually sort of as a side project. I think from Kid Gloves, we're going to host something for Universal or Peacock Kids, maybe for them. But it's cool. Yeah, I will admit I get a little jealous at the ends of the interviews, because they almost always end with like the actor going like, "This is my favorite interview I've ever done," or like, "This is the best interview I've done all weekend." And I'm like, nobody ever says that to me after my interview. So I get a little jealous of that. No, but it's a ton of fun. Like I said, it's a really, really cool bonding experience that we have, and they make me very, very, very proud, even if they're trying to steal my job.
Yeah, well, slip a few extra dollars into their allowance, and everything's all good, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they get paid in swag. Like I'll have the studios, you know, send them like toys and plushes and clothes from whatever movie they're covering.
That's all they need, right? And that's great. We wanted to ask a few questions from the audience about this as well. We want to know which celebrities from Kids Glove episodes were the best with the kids, and which ones were your daughter's favorites.
The best with kids were probably, I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal, even though he's an uncle to Maggie's kids, he was really good with them, even though he does not have kids. But I would say the best tend to be those who have their own kids. So, you know, James Corden is a dad. Ludacris is a dad, girl dad. I think he has 4 daughters. Ryan Reynolds has 3 daughters. Lin-Manuel, I think, has a boy and a girl. So I would say those actors that are used to talking to very small people were probably the best. They were all great. We haven't had a bad experience. Everyone's been great. I mean, Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens, I don't think they have kids, but like really connected with them. I honestly, we haven't. I think we're also choosing the right people. We haven't had a bad one yet. But I would say generally the parents that we've spoken to have been the best with my kids.
It's good that they're not seeing the ugly side of Hollywood just quite yet.
Right, exactly. I'll tell them those stories, you know, when they get older.
So I guess that leads to our next question. Some of your most memorable experiences working with celebrities in Hollywood and doing movie press junkets and things like that.
Wow, it's always tough when people ask you that, because I mean I've done, I mean, if not probably thousands of these at this point. I would say, you know, a lot of times people will ask me like, who's your favorite person to interview? And I probably do have a few favorites, but they're harder to pick than your least favorites. And I don't want to throw out shade. I've also had my snafus. I've had my missteps that were where they were bad interviews. They were disastrous, and they were maybe my fault. Where I've tried to do sort of bits with people that were not the right people to do bits with. Like I said, like when I was at MTV, Yahoo is more straightforward. The stuff I do tends to be sort of more straightforward interviews. That's why another reason why I love Kid Gloves is it does let me sort of, you know, flex my more sort of comic chops. But when I was at MTV, I did almost primarily sort of goofy, silly, comedic bits. even when I was at Moviefone, I started a series called Dueling Interviewers, where another guy and I would sort of fight over the person we had to interview in the middle. It was very like sort of like between two ferns ish. But going into MTV, I had an experience with Jason Statham where we came up with a bit, and it was called like, because he's the manliest man in Hollywood, right? He's one of them. We came up with a bit where it was like, unmanly questions with Jason Statham. And I was asking him if you ever went like shopping for baby clothes and things like that. I probably asked him a kid gloves question, like, do you like unicorns? I don't remember what they were, but all I do remember is Jason Statham was not amused. He was not amused. He was not into it. And the room turns very cold in that case. There was another experience I had. This was at Yahoo. We did do sort of goofier bits my first couple of years with Yahoo. And I tried a bit with Sir Ben Kingsley, Oscar winner, Gandhi Oscar winner, right? Where it was called The Perks of Being a Sir. And it was like, I thought they were kind of harmless questions. I was like, oh, what are the best things about being a sir? But I could tell he took his knighthood very seriously from the get-go. I probably should have just right then sort of said, okay, this is not going to work, and sort of withdrawn. But I stayed with it very unwisely, and I was like, oh, I said something about, oh, do you I bet you have the queen on speed dial or something like that. And it was like, the only way I can describe it is like he was an android, and suddenly someone turned the power switch off, because he literally just shut down and just stared at me in silence for 5-10 seconds. It was probably not as long as it felt like 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, back to the box trolls. So, the animated movie he was promoting. But it was funny because I went back and I was like, man, I swear to God, I had heard him sort of have some levity about being a knight. I swear something made me think that it was okay prior to doing this. Maybe I didn't do enough research, and research is probably the most important thing you can do in this field. I went and I researched, and I found this video of him on Jimmy Kimmel, where he was asking him sort of similar questions, and he said something like, has anyone ever like offended you or went too far asking you about being a knight? And Kingsley says, yeah, once. And Kimmel says, oh, what'd you do? And he said, I gave him that look. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm number 2. I got that look. I've had bad experiences where people were super rude to me. I thought for no good reason. There's a couple people out there I really don't care for that much after meeting them a few times. But I will say 90% of the people I deal with are at least cordial. 95% are more than that. I mean, I think generally actors or creatives, they tend to be really, well-rounded, cordial people. I've candid people, even if they're not, they're actors, so they can put on a good show as if they are. But favorites tend to be, I've gotten to really meet some giants multiple times. Spielberg, Coppola, Spike Lee. On the acting front, Tom Hanks, Al Pacino, Meryl Streep, Denzel Washington. I have this kind of running bit with Denzel where he's kind of a tough love guy, and I can never really tell if he remembers me. I've probably interviewed him at this point like 7 or 8 times, but every time I sit down with him, and this is extended to Zoom interviews too. He kind of gives me that look like, I don't know if I like this guy. I don't know if I trust this guy. And I take it as a source of pride that by the end of the interview, I can get him laughing and I can get good answers out of him. And having that sort of, it kind of freaks you out the first time. It'll make you very nervous sitting opposite a guy like that and getting the stink eye from Denzel. But over time, it gives you confidence knowing that you can work your way through it and get good stuff and develop a rapport over the years. Even if you're never quite sure with some people I've developed friendships with, but other people you're like, I don't know if they have any idea that I've interviewed them like 10 points at this time, 10 times at this point, sometimes you don't know. Because, these guys got to sit down and do these press junkets and talk to like 75 people over the course of a day sometimes. So
right.
I understand if I'm a face of the crowd at some points.
So you've mentioned these difficult interview moments. Do you feel that sometimes you learn more about yourself from the difficult interviews than you do from the amazing ones? And, what advice might you give to someone who's just starting in their career to how to deal with those flops and how to get back?
Oh, 100%. It's almost a cliche, right? The failure, you will learn more from failure than you will from success any given day of the week. I think sometimes it's good to be humbled and be scared off of from certain situations. Not only so you sort of like are more careful in what you do, but also so that you learn how to deal with them in the moment. With the Ben Kingsley situation, I've interviewed him since then. It's been fine. Statham many times. I don't think he ever remembered that it was me though. At the end of the Kingsley interview, I manned up. I said, "Hey, I'm sorry if I pushed that too far. I really didn't mean any offense. I really genuinely didn't mean to be disrespectful." And ate a slice of humble pie. And sometimes you got to do that. But 100%. You will always learn more from just falling on your face a few times.
Awesome. Well, we do have some more questions from our audience here, and I want to remind anyone who is watching, we'd love for you to type your questions for Kevin in the comment section of this YouTube live video, and we can get those up and into Kevin's out of Kevin's mouth as soon as we get those questions from you. So we encourage you to comment with your questions. But here's one from board member Steve Monaco. Since you've watched a lot of programs, have you watched Game of Thrones, and what did you think of the ending? I personally haven't watched it myself, so I'm not even sure. I heard through the grapevine that there was a weird or bad ending, but I'm not exactly sure myself. So what's your take on that?
I did watch it, and I wasn't thrilled with the ending. But I wasn't one of those. I was not ready to like light a torch and go chase down the creators. I thought the sort of extreme reaction to it was a little bit overboard. It did not end, I think, the way a lot of us hoped and dreamed it would. And, it didn't help that they had like those snafus in the final season. Like you would see like a water bottle show up. I don't know. I accepted for what it was. And my sort of attitude was that like that show, maybe they didn't stick the landing when all was said and done, but man, like what a success overall. I mean, what a crowning achievement of television. It was incredible. Like every and again, maybe that I didn't hate that ending as much as everyone. I didn't love it. I didn't love the Sopranos ending either. But at the end, but I think when, you were seeing sort of fan petitions to film a new ending and this and that. And it's a weird, that's sort of a weird thing with fandom right now. And this is something we have to deal with a lot as entertainment journalism, this sort of like proprietorship that fans sort of feel over content. And yeah, like there's a really cool side to it when things are sort of, when a show is unfolding from season to season and creators can hear what the fans are saying and react to it in real time in writing and are able. I think that's a really healthy back and forth. But the sort of overreaction to the finale, the sort of like fact that those creators went from heroes to villains overnight. I thought it was extreme and kind of unnecessary. I think people were sort of blinded by their disappointment for that one episode, or maybe those last couple episodes. I don't know. I thought the penultimate episode, I think it was when they were basically took place overnight right before the attack. Maybe it was 2 or 3 episodes, was one of the best episodes of the whole series. There's a lot of good stuff in that last season. So I get it that people were disappointed. Maybe I wasn't quite as disappointed as a lot of people, but I thought the fan reaction to it was, speaking of sort of the toxicity social media way too extreme.
So we've mentioned, like you just said, the criticism that producers can receive in real time. Let's talk about your role as a producer. I know you recently worked on a documentary called "A Diamond in the Buff" about Buffalo legend Lance Diamond. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because so far we've only talked about the Yahoo side of you. So let's hear about the other side of Kevin Polowy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was, when I was young, I wanted to be an actor. I was in a United Way commercial with Jim Kelly when I was very young. I would go to a lot of acting auditions and do school plays and stuff like that. So I've always sort of had a thirst to be on the creative side of it, as well. And I'm, I think I'm with this sort of like kid gloves and those bits that we do that are, I think, more entertainment than journalism. I do thankfully get to scratch that itch. But yeah, I right now I'm in a place where I'm and I have been for maybe a decade, constantly writing and directing, and producing and doing a little bit of acting still. A Diamond in the Buff was a documentary, like you mentioned, about Buffalo lounge legend Lance Diamond, that another Buffalo legend, Steve Reska, appeared in. But this actually came out of, I never intended to be a documentary filmmaker. It actually came out of a script I wrote when I'd made a short film comedy mockumentary short, sort of mid 2000s, called Badfish, that we filmed in Buffalo, played a couple festivals. And coming out of that, I wrote a feature film, and it was called, I think the original character was called Soul Man Steel. And we would describe it as like Napoleon Dynamite with soul. It was about a kind of a goofy 20-something white slacker. He worked at everything I write tends to be in Buffalo. He worked at Terrapin Station on Hurdle Avenue, and is infatuated with soul music. And his hero is this lounge singer who was probably inspired subconsciously by Lance Diamond. And so we at one point said, this should be. My producer at MTV at the time was really into it and came onto the project. And we were trying to make that as a feature comedy with Lance Diamond. That's actually how I met Steve. We brought it to Lance. Lance was fully into it. We were just trying to sort of raise the funds that one needs to make an independent film. And having some sort of false starts and bumps in the road as you do. It's really tough to raise the capital you need to make a movie. And unfortunately, while we were sort of in that process, Lance passed away. So we had some amazing footage of him. We had come back to Buffalo I was in New York City at the time. We'd come back to Buffalo a couple of times. We had followed him around for a weekend to create this sizzle reel that we were showing sort of potential producers and investors. And so we had this amazing footage. So we decided to make a documentary about Lance. And yeah, I think that released in 2017. It was a really cool full circle moment for me, because we were actually able to do its world premiere at the North Park, which was just amazing for me. Like I said, growing up 2 blocks from there, falling in love with movies there, and getting able to premiere my own movie there to literally a standing only crowd, was absolutely thrilling. But yeah, constantly writing stuff, producing other things I'm not writing. I produced a movie that came out in 2020 with Billy Crystal and Ben Schwartz called Standing Up, Falling Down, which is on demand now. I produced another movie called Songs for a Sloth that had Jack McBrayer in it from 30 Rock. That came out last year. It was kind of really, really small movie, but super charming, indie comedy. I've written a couple of TV shows, a couple other features. I have a hip hop feature right now that we're hoping to film in Buffalo within the next year or two, if that gets greenlit. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's sort of a moonlighting thing, but it also might be something that I eventually leave journalism for. We'll see. I don't know. Well, you just kind of I love what I do, but I would like to do a lot of other things, and I just want to sort of go where the wind takes me. So we'll see.
Well, I'm really glad that you got to have that full circle moment back at the North Park Theater, going from a kid to, your movie premiere at the North Park Theater. So that's incredible. So what might you say to the, next kid at the North Park Theater, the next student who might be watching tonight, as this is part of our education series. If their dream job is working at Yahoo or being an entertainment reporter, and I know we touched on this a little bit earlier on, but can you leave us with some final advice for college careers and beyond for those people out there watching?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I will just drive home that you just do it, even if you don't have a proper outlet. That's the beauty of 2022 is you can become a filmmaker with your iPhone. You can become a movie critic. You can put whatever you want onto the web, but do it smartly, and really put a lot of time and energy into it. Cause it's like, I think the convenience of technology can also hold us back, right? Because we can so easily just film ourselves giving an opinion for a movie, but like put energy into everything you do. Make sure there's a quality control. Send it to people before you post it. There's a tendency today to just sort of want to like go viral immediately, whatever, it's a TikTok generation. No disrespect to that, is great. But like, I think there's, but I think that stuff can be really fleeting. And if you really want to succeed in this business, you have to really make sure what you're putting out there is smart and is well researched, and it doesn't necessarily have to be well produced, but also don't let it look like crap either. If you're writing, if you're doing interviews, my main piece of advice for you is research. Research is the most vital component of my job, more so than reading cue cards, more so than doing interviews. I do a series called Roll Recall, where it's a career retrospective, and I'm doing one tomorrow. We'll talk through an actor's top 5 or 10 most iconic roles, and those interviews are usually about 20 to 30 minutes. But I probably spent 3.5 hours today researching because I don't actually get nervous when I do these interviews. I get nervous when I'm doing the research, because once I've done the research and once I have my questions and once I feel confident about what I have on paper, I'm fine. I can go in and I feel good because I know that I put in the time and I was smart, in as exhausted. Sometimes you do these things and maybe there aren't that many interesting angles, but more often than not, once you start sort of like looking for what people are talking about tied to a movie or tied to a certain subject, you can, the ideas are going to come to you. So be smart and be genuine with that. Research, as much as you can. Be genuine, be yourself. I know this might be bad sort of intel for sort of, broadcasters who went through broadcast journalism school, because I'm primarily an internet host and I was a writer who sort of worked my way on camera. But I've never really had sort of the like newscaster voice. I don't approach my work like that. And maybe I've been in situations where I've had, but I think there's a lot, authenticity sort of goes a long way, especially when you're doing interviews. And I think people can sense it, and I think sometimes when I do these junkets and people are talking to other broadcast journalists for, one after the other, and I come on and maybe I'm more laid back in sort of my style and approach, I think they sense it. And I think it ultimately yields better interviews for me. Ultimately, I think it could be sort of a secret sauce type of thing. But I think that just sort of expands to every realm of life. Just be genuine, be yourself. Because I think it took me many years to sort of learn that, trying to be sort of the model of who the leading people are in this sort of profession. But ultimately I realized when I was just being myself, I was way better at it. So that would be sort of maybe my final thought to leave with you.
Well, wise words of advice from Buffalo born and raised Kevin Polowy. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you again soon next time you're in town.
Shout out to North Buffalo, not Kenmore. Kenmore is fine, but North Buffalo. All right. Thanks, Noah. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. And before we wrap things up tonight, I just want to let everyone know about a few more exciting things the Buffalo Broadcasters Association has coming in the very near future. First things first, meat raffles are back. We are holding a virtual meat raffle. This is going to be taking place on April 8th at 7 p.m. Tickets are on sale right now at buffalobroadcasters.com. We hope you will join us. Plenty of chances for you to win not only meat, but 50-50, bucket of booze, and all sorts of other fun prizes as well. Going to be joined throughout that meat raffle by local broadcasters are going to be taking part in the broadcast of the meat raffle as well. So we hope you'll get your tickets. Again, buffalobroadcasters.com to get your virtual meat raffle tickets, April 8th at 7 p.m. Also, for the students who may be watching tonight, we want to let you know about the Buffalo Broadcasters Association job fair that's going to be on Saturday, April 23rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be taking place at the WNED TV studios in downtown Buffalo. Registration for the job fair can also be found on our website, buffalobroadcasters.com. We hope to see you there. Thanks so much for joining us for another educational speaker series event from the BBA. Our next one will be taking place on March 24th at 7 p.m. The next speaker will be Mickey Osterreicher. So we hope to see you there for that one. Again, thank you for joining us and good night.